Thank you very much for inviting me here. This is a premiere for me because so far I have made audio recorded presentations. So this is on air, so I'm a bit nervous, and I hope you're going to be tolerant. Unlike the previous speakers, I'm not going to speak about research, but just a few comments for contemplation. So if we speak of Czech liberal democracy, we are based on the idea that what was before the start of degeneration of liberal democracy was satisfactory, and we are comparing with the past, and we witness many low or defective phenomena, but we measure them, we compare them with ideal happy past when democracy was flawless. So is this the right approach, or was the past not so bright? If we look at the beginning of the 1980s on the works of Ralph Dahrendorf, we can see three transition phases. First, a transition of a constitutional political institution, then the transformation of the economy, and building of civil society. So each of these phases has different demands, different timing. And my teacher, Petr Pirhat, on the account of this Dahrendorf contemplation says that we don't have experience with successful transition post totality. So it's not like in Greece or in Portugal or in Spain. So we have no previous experience with transformation from the system, which showed some totalitarian features. So it is not sure that the transition will be successful, that we achieve a consolidated democracy of a liberal type. So the question is that if we are based on skeptical feelings, so the question is if at the beginning of a transition in the 1980s, did we agree on what we want, on what we see around ourselves, and how we should assess or evaluate what we see. And I'd like to point out several aspects. The Czech Republic had a nice interwar tradition of democracy and politics in general. However, this quite good interwar tradition was efficiently covered by extreme breakup of society, which took place after 1948. So it was the abolishment of private property, absence of interlink or connective things like of the society, like Catholic Church, like in Poland. There was a trauma in 1968 in Czechoslovakia, and there were visible massive escape from the public to private life among Czech citizens, and the normalization experience. Also all these things created a poor background for a successful democracy, because successful democracy is based on a shared fate. So I perceived other people not as foes, but as friends. And important is trust to myself, trust to political representatives. And the current situation, current data on trust in the state and satisfaction with political situation, it is obvious that we don't have a reason to be enthusiastic. And in the 1990s, there was a constitutional moment of change of value orientation, and the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms from 1991 was the change, and the Constitution assumes a normative establishment of the new state. So both these concepts, the Charter and the Constitution, are successful, but the thing is how they are implemented. A few years ago, Professor Malinowski from Brno University, who's been a judge of the European Court for many years, and he criticized the Constitution quite a bit because it offers a quite broad extent of interpretation plurality. So the texts are not anonymous. So it depends how they are interpreted, and there it depends who tries to interpret them, what is his idea of the framework of Constitution. And Paul Blocker, who worked at the Faculty of Social Studies and wrote a book on Central Europe. So we can see this context, the emphasis on constitutional documents, the hegemony of constitutional courts. So, according to Blocker, too big power of constitutional court marginalized constitutionalism or citizenship participation, to which the responsibility for politics is related. So you have an alibi because there is somebody who will protect you, such a constitutional court. And then there is concern of referenda in this Czech Republic, which I also share, but this concern can depict constitution as an elite project which is not friendly to the people. And there are not enough obstacles to mean intentions. If somebody is misusing the Constitution, it doesn't mean that they do not understand the Constitution, but they do not want to understand it. And maybe in the 1990s, we were not aware of this. And another comment I have on political parties. In the 1990s, there was an obvious effort to monopolize the public space by political parties. This is associated with Václav Klaus and Miloš Zeman too. So the partiality, partifying of the public space can be related to joy of power, joy of money, public budget, or corruption spiral. So the lift to the power, and so how much these things are representing the partifying in the 1990s. And Fiala protects politics as a participation activity from judges. But if you look at the civil democratic party, so in the 1990s, it was very closed. It wasn't participating too much on public affairs. So the political parties had very big ambitions in the 1990s, but they have profiled somehow in the course of time, which strengthened the mistrust by the citizens. And so first of all, new and better parties were sought after, but in recent years, I think the people or public try to distance from political parties, and the perception of political transformation is another thing. So is it a success or is it a fraud? So a perception of economic transformation can be related to the critics of neoliberalism and capitalism, which is perceived as toxic and unable to cope with challenges such as climatic crisis. And next to this, fundamental critics of capitalism, then there can be a feministic critic, and then you feel the liberal democracy as a minor issue because you perceived society as toxic, capitalistic, or machistic. There was a project of men's right which tries to point out this issue. So also the foreign politics orientation, both the charter and constitution, lays the basis of anchoring the Czech Republic in the EU and NATO. But this notion was shaken when there were protests against the American radar in the Brno Mountains. So was it a novelty, or was it something which has been developing in the society hiddenly for a long time? So if you look at the hybrid war on the internet, it's not only communists who are driving the hybrid war. And all these aspects, or maybe some more, may be added because this is an intuitive thing. All this leads me to the feeling that it is obvious that everything is shaking in our environment. But the thing is, if or then the 1990s were golden age of social consensus, or was it only a wish, or was it just a superficial reflection which was reflected in the agreement of political academical elites?
But they didn't really drag the sufficient parts of the society into these considerations. We certainly see a number of things that I do not like, do not make me happy, but the question is whether we can describe it by degeneration, whether we are assuming for the 1990s some consensus which in effect never existed. That is all. Thank you.